how to maximize your profits on your Airbnb business. That's the subject of this video. Welcome everyone, my name is Fernando David, and on this video, which is going to be a series of videos, I'm going to be discussing how to maximize your profits on your Airbnb business. We're going to begin by discussing your listing. Your listing is probably one of the most important parts because it's the first thing or your advertisement for your Airbnb business. So we're going to go over some tips and strategies on maximizing and getting more exposure to your listing, thus creating a higher occupancy rate and bringing in more money. All right, so let's discuss the listing. Airbnb makes the process of creating a listing super simple. It's basically fill in the blank. The key point there is fill in the blank. If there's an empty spot, put something in it. It shouldn't be blank. Here's why that's important. Airbnb wants to make sure that you're serious about the business and that you're thorough. And the more information you put into that listing, the more Airbnb is going to consider it a complete listing, and it's going to help boost it. So the first thing in that listing is going to be the title. A lot of people spend a lot of time thinking about an ideal title, and they use titles like this: charming cottage in the woods or in the mountains, or beautiful beachfront property. Here's the problem with that is what Airbnb itself, the listing, should be considered like a website, right? And in a website, in order for a website to appear in a search, you have to have keywords. And this is not a lesson on search optimization, but it is going to be a lesson on how to optimize your listing, and keywords are a big part of that. So when you put your title, and I'm going to give you an example of keywords you should be putting in, it's words like king bed, pool, hot tub, high-speed internet, free parking. Those are keywords that people have a tendency to search for when they're going to look for a listing. So that should be in your title. You know, charming, cottage with a warm feeling is not something that you should be in your title, because people are not going to find that. They're not going to search for that. So that's why the keywords in your titles are important. In addition to that, everything's going to be a building block. So consider this your foundation, right? In the next step, or here it's going to be our third step, but in the next step, which is the property description, we're going to build on this, and I'll touch on that in a second. The next thing is the photos. I mentioned this on prior videos. High quality photos are extremely important. And I mentioned this before, they have to be accurate, a true representation of the property. So don't get creative with your photo, meaning if you have a very small bedroom, don't put the camera in an angle that makes the bedroom look large, because the problem with that is you're going to set up expectations that you can't meet. So if a guest, all they're going to have to judge whether or not they want to be in your property or book your property is the listing. So if you make your bedroom look bigger and the guest shows up and it's a tiny room, you're going to, trust me when I tell you, you're going to have issues with that. So make sure the photos are an accurate representation of your listing. The other thing on photos is that you want to write a description of the photos. I've seen so many Airbnb listings that have a beautiful photo, but no description. Again, what we're trying to do is put in words, putting keywords in your listing so that Google, when you do a search, picks that up, right? So each photo should have a detailed description of what the viewer is seeing. So for example, in your bedroom, I like to put the square footage, how big the bedroom is in terms of that particular photo. So that's an example. The third is the property description. Right? In the property description, like I stated, it's going to build on whatever you write in your title. So again, your keywords should be part of the description. Here's what I do in this section. I do bullet points and I highlight everything that I want to highlight about the property. Here's why that's important. We currently live in a society that our attention span is very short. So if you start to put a lot of verbiage in your description, which is probably the second or third thing that the guest is going to see, that you may lose them. So you don't want to spend do a lot of verbiage in this section. Just highlight stuff. That's why I put it in bullet points. So for example, if my property is beachfront, I'm gonna write beachfront, 3 bedrooms. I'm gonna write in there king bed, hot tub, full kitchen, high speed Wi-Fi. Those key important components, I'm going to put them in bullet points so that a guest quickly can see what that is. If I provide the guest with their needs or what they're looking for, then they're more likely to continue. So the next thing will be the space. This is where you can get creative, right? This is where you can get very descriptive, and I recommend you become very descriptive in this part. Not you can add all your fluffy, flowery description of your property, right? This is where you can do that, and it's okay. But once again, I'm not a proponent of that. I caution you to don't do that too much, and here's why. Your description of beautiful, your description of comfortable, for example, one of the most, a lot of people write one of the most comfortable king beds on the Airbnb listing, right? Or something to that effect. But your definition of comfortable may not be my definition of comfortable. What I prefer to see there is what type of mattress you have, right? So if you have a firm mattress, right in there, firm mattress, right? If it's a soft mattress, right in there, soft mattress. Here's why that's important. Some people may not like firm. And if you write super comfortable, then that's something for that guest to review you on after the fact, right? They're gonna, if they don't like soft beds, they're gonna write, the title or the host stated the bed was comfortable. I didn't find it comfortable. So that's why I try to stay away from that fluffy stuff. But that's what's going to go here. All right, so let's recap the first 4 points because I think they're the most important points, right? The title, we want to make sure we have their keywords, right? The photos, high quality, and there's a description for each photo. The property description, we want to make sure it's in bullet form and there's highlights there, right? And the space is where we want to be creative. We want to maximize that space area and be very descriptive of your property. If you have any questions on these first 4 points, do me a favor, add the questions on the comments below. Also, don't forget to hit the notification button. This is going to be a series of videos. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do so and hit the notification so you can be alerted when I throw out the next video, because the next video is going to build on this. All right, let's continue. The access or guest access. Here, what's important about here is that you explain to the guests what they have access to, what is shared, and if you have any areas in the property that you lock off. For example, on my properties, on my single family homes, I have a room or a closet that we lock off for our cleaning staff. So you want to identify those items here in the guest access. And the other one that's important is if you have areas that are shared, make it explicit that, for example, I have properties that are duplexes, fourplexes, and the backyard is shared, I make sure I note that the backyard is shared so there's no issues in the future. The next thing is the guest interaction. Here it's up to you how you want to interact with your guests. I tell all my guests that we are available from 7 in the morning to 9 p.m. And our interaction is completely dependent on them. As much if they want us to interact with them, we will. If they don't, we won't. But the key point here is make sure I like to put hours, because otherwise you'll have guests calling you at 2 or 3 in the morning when they come out from hanging out on the beach or partying or at the bar, etc. And if you don't set hours, they'll call you at 2 or 3 in the morning. So I do that. The next section is other things to note. Here is where you want to add some whatever if there's something special about your property, for example, if it's a gated community and there's a rolling patrol security guard that patrols the property, I like to note that there. Also, I like to continue to set up expectations about the property. One thing that I tell all my guests is for them to remember that they're booking a private residence. They're not booking a hotel. And I ask all my guests to keep that in mind, that it's a private residence and that the neighbors are just that, they're neighbors, to respect them and respect our property. The next thing is the neighborhood. Here, I see a lot of hosts go into great details about the neighborhood. I don't do that. I specifically only list 2 or 3 of my favorite restaurants that are within walking distance, supermarket that's within walking distance, and I give a brief history of the neighborhood, not the entire city. So that's what I write there. I don't make that too lengthy. And the last thing, which is really important, is getting around. My properties are in the city. Uber and Lyft are extremely popular in Fort Lauderdale. I like to, and if you don't have this already, I have an account with Uber and Lyft. And each one, if you don't know, you'll get a code. If you get someone to use your code, Uber and Lyft will give you some kind of reward for it, right? It's like a reward program. In my case, it's $20 or 20% discount towards my next ride. So I put that on there because this is an additional revenue for you. Today, a lot of people use it, so you might not, it's not as popular as it was several years ago. Several years ago, I won't say I make a lot of money on it, but it did add to my bottom line. If you have any questions about anything that I discussed, again, please do so by adding the question to the comments below. Or easier for me is to follow me on Instagram or Facebook and DM me. Okay, I know it went quickly, so if you have any questions on anything I discussed, please do me a favor and ask and put the questions in the comments below, or follow me on Instagram and Facebook and DM me, and I'll expand on some of the stuff that I talked about. As always, please subscribe, share, like, and follow.